When a powerful black CEO checks into her own luxury hotel, she's humiliated, accused of fraud, and thrown out by her own staff, unaware that the cameras are rolling. But as the video explodes across the internet, she returns not for revenge, but for truth. What unfolds next shatters a billion-dollar empire and exposes secrets no one was meant to see, until one woman dared to fight back. Get ready for a story that'll pull you in so deep, you won't be able to walk away. This is not just a tale, it's an experience you'll feel. So before we begin, hit subscribe to Black Battles, where every story hits harder than truth itself. The city of New York pulsed beneath a curtain of winter rain, every streetlight flickering like a heartbeat against glass towers and taxi roofs. High above the midnight traffic, the Crystal Heights Hotel stood like a cathedral of wealth, all marble, gold, and silence polished to perfection. To the world, it was the symbol of elite comfort. To one woman, it was supposed to be home. Evelyn Carter stepped out of the black sedan and lifted her face to the awning. The rain traced delicate lines across her umbrella, as if the night itself were sketching her silhouette. She wore a charcoal coat, simple but powerful, and her heels echoed across the wet pavement with the quiet rhythm of confidence. Inside the glass doors, the lobby shimmered, chandeliers scattering light across cream-colored floors, soft jazz humming in the background. Every surface whispered money. Every gaze measured status. The doorman hesitated when she approached. "Evening, ma'am," he said politely, though his eyes lingered just long enough to betray uncertainty. Evelyn's smile was kind but unreadable. "Good evening. I have a reservation. Penthouse suite." She crossed the threshold and the warmth of the lobby brushed her cheeks. The scent of lilies mixed with perfume and power. Behind the front desk, two employees straightened automatically. Clara Hughes, young, ambitious, nervous, and Paul Henderson, the night manager, a man who carried his authority like a badge he never earned. Both looked up, assessing their guest with the well-trained speed of people who judge before they speak. "Welcome to Crystal Heights," Clara began, voice sugar-coated but cautious. "May I have your name, please?" "Evelyn Carter," she replied, sliding a sleek phone across the counter with her digital confirmation glowing on the screen. "Reservation under my name. Penthouse, 3 nights. Paul leaned forward, his smile thin. "The penthouse suite? That's quite an exclusive reservation, Ms. Carter." He tapped at his computer, eyes darting toward her coat, her hair, her skin. "Are you certain it wasn't booked under someone else's name?" Evelyn's lips curved slightly, not out of amusement but disbelief. "I'm quite certain. In fact," she met his gaze, "this hotel is part of my company." The words landed like the first crack of thunder. Clara blinked. Paul froze halfway through typing. For a breathless moment, the only sound was the piano drifting from the bar. Then Paul laughed lightly, the kind of laugh that hides discomfort. "Oh, I see, you're joking. We've just had a few incidents lately with guests claiming—" "I don't joke about ownership," Evelyn interrupted gently, her tone soft but edged with steel. She wasn't angry yet, just tired of disbelief that followed her wherever she went. Paul's expression shifted into professional skepticism. "Of course, Ms. Carter. Just routine verification. Could I see your identification, please?" She handed him her driver's license, company ID, and a corporate card embossed with the hotel's crest. He inspected each with exaggerated care, as though expecting the plastic to confess fraud. Clara hovered beside him, whispering under her breath, "The design looks off. Maybe counterfeit?" Paul didn't shush her. Guests nearby began to notice. A couple waiting for their valet slowed their conversation. A businessman glanced over his tablet. Even the pianist missed a note. Evelyn felt every eye on her, that subtle, choking awareness of being doubted in public. Paul finally looked up. "I'm sorry, Ms. Carter, but these documents don't match the registered owner in our system." He smiled politely, but his tone dripped with condescension. "Perhaps there's been a misunderstanding." Evelyn took a slow breath, steady and dignified. "Why don't you check again, Manager Henderson? Try the corporate portal instead of the front desk log." Clara crossed her arms. "We're just following protocol. You people. She caught herself too late, biting off the last words. Evelyn heard them anyway. Her fingers tightened around the strap of her bag, but her voice remained calm. What exactly do you mean by you people, Miss Hughes? Clara flushed. Nothing. I just meant, our guests, sometimes. The silence thickened. Even the rain outside seemed to pause. Paul shifted uncomfortably and gestured toward the security phone. Let's not escalate this. I'll have someone assist you while we verify your information. From across the lobby, a young woman with a camera in hand, Lena Brooks, a travel influencer streaming her city nights, noticed the scene. Something about Evelyn's composure amid hostility pulled her in. She tapped her screen. Going live, she whispered. Within seconds, hundreds of viewers watched as the camera caught the moment. The confident woman at the desk, the skeptical staff, the tension simmering under luxury. Excuse me, Evelyn said evenly, aware of the lens but unbothered. You're about to make a mistake broadcast around the world. Paul folded his arms. Ma'am, I'll ask you once more to wait quietly while I contact corporate. He lowered his voice, but the microphone on Lena's phone caught every word. Security might need to escort her out if she becomes difficult. Evelyn turned slightly toward the crowd. Her poise was magnetic, the calm in the center of a storm. Difficult, she repeated softly. Interesting choice of words. Tell me, Mr. Henderson, what exactly does difficult look like to you? The question lingered like smoke. Paul didn't answer. Clara looked away. Lena's live stream comments exploded. This is discrimination. She's handling it better than anyone would. Name and shame that hotel. Evelyn stepped back, folding her arms lightly. She wasn't going to beg, not for entry into her own property, and certainly not for validation from men like Paul. Her eyes swept across the marble floor, up to the chandelier, the very one she had personally approved when the hotel launched 2 years ago. Every glittering crystal suddenly felt like a witness. Call your security if you must, she said, her voice low but resonant. But make sure he brings the truth with him. Paul's brows furrowed. The truth? She met his stare without blinking. Yes, because when it arrives, I'd hate for you to miss it. Outside, thunder rolled over Manhattan. Inside, the live stream count climbed past 50,000. The lobby of Crystal Heights, once a temple of prestige, had become a stage. And Evelyn Carter, elegant, unshaken, stood at its center not as a guest denied entry, but as justice waiting to be recognized. The pianist resumed playing softly, unaware that history had just walked past his keys. By the time the elevator chimed in the distance, the night had already chosen its story, and the world, watching through a stranger's phone, was about to see who truly owned the room. The clock above the reception desk ticked steadily, slicing through the thick silence. The moment hung heavy in the lobby. Velvet air, polished marble, and eyes that pretended not to stare. Yet every guest within sight felt the tension. Something had broken the rhythm of luxury inside Crystal Heights. Evelyn Carter stood calm, her posture straight, her presence steady as stone. Paul Henderson's smirk faltered, but pride kept him from backing down. Clara Hughes, standing just behind him, folded her arms tightly as if bracing herself. Her voice trembled with a mixture of nerves and disdain. Ma'am, she began, louder than necessary. We just need to confirm who you really are. Evelyn looked at her, unblinking. You have my ID. You have my confirmation. You even have the app with the booking verified. She paused, her voice lowering into something sharper, colder. What else are you looking for? The sound of whispering rippled across the marble. A group of business travelers exchanged glances. 2 women waiting for the elevator turned, phones in hand, pretending to text while recording. The air had shifted, the kind of energy that builds before a storm. Paul leaned forward, trying to reclaim control. Look, Ms. Carter, there's no need to make a scene, but until we can verify this reservation through our system, I'm afraid you can't proceed upstairs. Evelyn tilted her head slightly, a small, almost imperceptible smile on her lips. You assume I'm the one making a scene, Mr. Henderson? Paul froze for a second, but the moment was brief. He waved toward the front desk computer and muttered, "To Clara, check again, maybe through the corporate network." Clara frowned. Already did. Nothing under that name in ownership records or tonight's system log. Her voice rose enough for others to hear, deliberate or careless. No one could tell. She's not in the database. And with that, it began. Murmurs filled the lobby. Some people turned away, embarrassed for her. Others watched openly, curious to see how the story would unfold. Evelyn could feel the familiar sting beneath her calm, the subtle, poisonous tone of disbelief that had followed her all her life. She'd built an empire, survived boardroom wars, shattered glass ceilings, and still, in the heart of her own hotel, her word wasn't enough. Paul gestured toward the security line on the phone. "I'm going to call in our security chief, just to clear this up." Evelyn didn't move. "Of course, I'll wait right here." Her poise disarmed him. It wasn't the reaction he expected. No yelling, no panic, just an unshakable calm that made him nervous. He turned away, pretending to focus on the screen. Clara, meanwhile, leaned closer to whisper. But the whisper wasn't quiet enough. "She's probably lying. These types always think they can bluff their way into high-end places." Evelyn heard it, every syllable, but chose silence over confrontation. Not yet, she thought. Let them reveal themselves completely. Across the room, Lena Brooks, the travel vlogger from before, had her phone still pointed at the scene. Her live stream had grown from a few hundred to over 12,000 viewers. She whispered into her mic, "You guys, this woman's being questioned for no reason. She has proof, and they're acting like she's a criminal." Comments exploded on the stream. "Typical. Stay strong, Queen. This is happening live at Crystal Heights, NYC." Lena zoomed in just as Evelyn folded her hands on the counter, the picture of grace under fire. Paul returned to her. "Ms. Carter, I'm going to have to ask you to step aside while we verify your credentials. You're holding up other guests." Evelyn's voice didn't rise, but it cut clean through the noise. "Mr. Henderson, do I look like a criminal to you?" He blinked. "That's not what I—" "Because you're speaking to me," she continued, "as though I'm about to rob this lobby instead of being its owner." Clara scoffed under her breath. "Owner, sure." Evelyn turned her gaze on her, calm, unforgiving. "You seem certain of your prejudice, Miss Hughes. Tell me, does your training manual teach you that too?" Clara's face flushed scarlet. "I didn't mean—" But the apology never finished, because Lena's voice interrupted from across the room. "Ma'am, you're live to over 30,000 people right now," she said, her tone shaking with both outrage and awe. "Would you like to tell us what's happening?" Paul's head snapped toward her. "Excuse me, you can't film in here?" Lena held her ground. "Then maybe you shouldn't humiliate guests in here." The comment hit like a slap. Gasps rippled across the crowd. Someone clapped softly before realizing the weight of the moment. Evelyn turned toward the camera, not dramatically, just a quiet acknowledgement of the world watching. Her eyes, fierce and controlled, met the lens. "I came here tonight to stay in a suite I legally reserved, in a hotel I helped build," she said. "And I'm being accused of fraud without evidence by the very people who should represent my company's values." Her voice was low, melodic and steady, the kind of voice that made listeners forget to breathe. Paul tried to interrupt. "This is not—" She didn't stop. "If this is how you treat a woman with proof in her hand and respect in her tone, I can only imagine how you treat those who have neither." The livestream comment section went wild. "I can't believe this. Fire them all. Queen energy. Stay calm." Paul's mask of professionalism cracked. "Security will be here in a moment, Ms. Carter," he said stiffly. "You'll need to wait outside until we confirm." "I'll stand right here," Evelyn replied, "because I have nothing to hide." The elevator dinged in the distance. A tall man in a crisp black suit stepped out. Thomas Ray, head of security. His presence carried weight, the kind that silenced whispers. "What's the situation?" he asked. Paul jumped to speak. "This woman presented fake documents and is claiming she owns the hotel." Thomas's brow furrowed as he looked at Evelyn. Something in her eyes, calm authority, quiet defiance, made him hesitate. "Is that true, ma'am?" Evelyn met his gaze squarely. "No, but it will take you 30 seconds to see that he's lying." The camera zoomed closer. Lena whispered into her mic, "You heard her, 30 seconds, let's see what happens." Evelyn slid her ID toward Thomas, her voice even and deliberate. "Check the corporate system. Ownership records. My name will be there." Thomas turned toward the front desk computer. Paul shifted nervously, glancing at Clara, who had gone pale. The rain outside intensified, slamming against the windows like a warning. Inside, the world seemed to hold its breath. For the first time that night, Paul looked uncertain. He tugged at his collar, muttering, "This is ridiculous." Evelyn's voice rose, not loud but commanding enough for every person to hear. "What's ridiculous, Mr. Henderson, is that I have to prove I belong in a place I created." A hush fell over the room. Even the pianist stopped playing. Lena's phone now showed nearly 70,000 viewers. Evelyn stood alone in the center of the lobby, calm, composed, radiant against the glow of the chandelier. And as Thomas's fingers began to type, the truth was only moments away. The world was watching. The storm had begun. For a long moment, no one in the lobby moved. The only sound was the faint hum of the ceiling lights and the rhythmic tapping of Thomas Ray's fingers on the keyboard. The system screen glowed against, his face reflecting lines of code, login prompts and files loading with agonizing slowness. Every eye in the lobby was fixed on him, the man who, in that moment, held the power to either prove Evelyn Carter right or humiliate her beyond repair. Paul Henderson stood stiff beside him, his jaw tight, his confidence slowly crumbling. He could feel the weight of the cameras on him, thousands of unseen eyes dissecting his every twitch, every breath. He wanted to speak, to regain control, but for the first time that night, his voice failed him. Evelyn didn't move. She stood in the same position, her hands resting gently on the marble counter, posture regal yet unthreatening. Her calm was deliberate, a quiet rebellion against the storm of assumptions surrounding her. Inside, however, her heartbeat pounded hard enough to echo in her ears. She'd faced boardrooms full of powerful men, journalists eager to twist her words, but this public humiliation cut deeper. Because it wasn't business, it was personal. Thomas squinted at the monitor. Corporate portal, verified. Logging into the owner registry. Paul scoffed quietly. Good luck with that. Those records aren't public. Thomas didn't respond. The system loaded line by line until finally, Evelyn's name appeared in clear digital text. Evelyn Carter, majority owner, Crystal Heights Group Holdings. The lobby exhaled in unison. Someone gasped. Another whispered, "Oh my God." Oh, a young couple near the elevators exchanged glances, their phones still recording. Paul froze mid-breath. The color drained from his face as he read the words. Clara Hughes pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. The reality struck like lightning, swift, blinding, and impossible to deny. Thomas turned slowly toward Evelyn, his expression shifting from neutrality to deep respect. "Ms. Carter," he said quietly, "the system confirms you are the majority owner of Crystal Heights." A single sentence, but it changed everything. Evelyn didn't gloat. She didn't smile or raise her voice. She simply inclined her head, her tone calm and cuttingly precise. "Thank you, Mimstray. That will be all." Paul stumbled over his words. This must be some kind of mistake. Maybe the database hasn't been updated." "Enough," Thomas interrupted, his voice steady, firm. "The system doesn't lie, Paul." Lena Brooks, still live streaming from across the room, whispered to her viewers, "You're seeing this in real time, guys. She owns the place. The same people accusing her of fraud just tried to throw her out of her own hotel." The chat exploded. "This is insane." "That's power. Pure power. Cancel that manager immediately." Evelyn turned toward Paul and Clara. Her composure was unshaken, but the authority in her gaze made them both flinch. "I believe both of you owe not just me, but every guest here an apology." Paul swallowed hard, his words barely audible. Ms. Carter, I was only following protocol. Protocol? Evelyn cut in softly. Does protocol include mocking a guest's identity? Does it include assuming deception based on appearance? Because from where I'm standing, this wasn't protocol. It was prejudice. Clara opened her mouth, then closed it. Her shoulders trembled. For the first time, she realized what she'd done. Her earlier smugness had vanished, replaced by a raw, visible shame. Tears threatened her eyes, but Evelyn's expression offered no comfort. This was not a moment for forgiveness. It was a reckoning. Lena's camera captured every second. The shifting faces, the stunned silence, the raw human fallout of arrogance exposed. Paul tried again, desperate to save face. I assure you, Mrs. Carter, there was no ill intent. Evelyn's voice cut through the air like the crack of thunder. Intent doesn't matter when impact destroys dignity. The line hit deep, so clean, so precise it might as well have been carved into stone. The guests murmured. Even Thomas, a man known for composure, nodded faintly. Mr. Ray, Evelyn continued, please make sure this recording is archived. I want a full incident report by morning. Paul's lips parted. You're not serious. Oh, I'm very serious, Evelyn replied. Effective immediately. Both of you are suspended pending review. You'll receive formal notification within the hour. Clara gasped softly. Paul looked as though the ground had vanished beneath him. You can't just... I can, Evelyn said. And I will. It was at that moment that the truth of her power truly settled the room. The once doubted woman was now the axis around which the entire building seemed to turn. Her authority filled the space. Not loud or dramatic, but steady, unshakable, inevitable. Lena, behind her phone, whispered, She just changed everything. Evelyn turned toward the gathered guests, many of whom had stayed to watch the confrontation unfold. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, I deeply apologize for the disruption tonight. What you've witnessed should never happen within these walls, or any walls claiming to represent excellence and equality. Her tone was smooth but firm, the voice of someone who knew how to lead through chaos. Crystal Heights was built on the belief that dignity has no price tag. That belief was betrayed tonight. But I assure you, that ends now. There was a quiet murmur of approval from the crowd. A few even applauded softly, unsure if they should. Evelyn didn't bask in it. She simply nodded in gratitude. Thomas cleared his throat. Ms. Carter, should I escort these employees out? Evelyn shook her head. No, let them leave on their own. Dignity isn't a privilege, it's a choice. Paul and Clara gathered their things silently. The sound of their footsteps echoed like guilt through the lobby. No one spoke. No one stopped them. As the doors shut behind them, Evelyn finally let out a long, slow breath. The weight she had carried, the humiliation, the restraint, the composure, began to lift. But her eyes were already on something greater. She turned back to Thomas. Tomorrow I want to see every file related to discrimination complaints at this location. Every name, every report, he nodded. Yes, ma'am. And gather the department heads, she continued. We're restructuring how this place operates and from top to bottom. Lena approached her hesitantly, camera lowered now. Ms. Carter, I'm sorry for recording without permission. I didn't expect it to go viral. Evelyn looked at her kindly. Don't apologize. Sometimes the world needs to see the truth. Unfiltered. Lena smiled weakly. You've already got over 500,000 views. Evelyn nodded. Then let's make sure they see what change looks like too. Outside, thunder rumbled once more, rolling across the New York skyline. The rain had slowed, leaving the glass facade of Crystal Heights streaked with reflections, like a mirror trying to cleanse itself. Inside, Evelyn Carter walked toward the elevators, her silhouette framed by golden light. The weight of injustice still lingered in the air, but so did something else, something stronger. Justice, reborn in silence. The elevator doors closed behind her with a soft chime. The night that began in humiliation had ended in revelation, and for Crystal Heights, the reckoning had only just begun. The elevator doors glided open to the penthouse floor with a soft, mechanical sigh. Evelyn Carter stepped out into the corridor, her heels clicking against the polished floor. The hallway was quiet, sterile, filled with the faint hum of electricity and the scent of luxury. Too clean, too artificial, too silent after the chaos below. She moved like someone who had walked through fire and emerged without a burn, at least on the outside. Inside, though, her chest felt tight. Her pulse thudded at her temples. The confrontation had ended, but its weight hadn't left her. Every moment replayed in her mind. The disbelief in Paul's voice, the judgment in Clara's eyes. The thousands of strangers watching her humiliation unfold in real time. When she unlocked the door to her suite, the city skyline opened before her, like a dark ocean of glass and light. New York at midnight. Alive, indifferent, beautiful. She set her purse down on the marble counter and took a long breath. For a fleeting second, she let herself collapse into the velvet armchair by the window. Her reflection stared back at her from the glass. Strong, composed, successful. Yet beneath that mask lay exhaustion that years of corporate battles had buried deep. Her phone buzzed relentlessly. Notifications, mentions, hashtags. She picked it up. The words flashed across the screen. Evelyn Carter, Crystal Heights, justice at the lobby. This is America. Hundreds of messages poured in. From employees, strangers, activists, journalists. Some called her an icon. Others demanded answers. A few accused her of staging it for attention. Evelyn scrolled slowly, her eyes tired but sharp. Truth is never clean, she murmured. It always comes covered in dirt first. A soft knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Come in, she said without looking up. Thomas Ray stepped inside, hat in hand, posture formal yet hesitant. Miss Carter, he began. I just wanted to check on you. It's been a long night, Evelyn nodded. It's been longer than it looks. He gave a faint, sympathetic smile. The staff's buzzing downstairs. Half of them are scared, the other half inspired. You've got the whole city talking. Evelyn looked out at the skyline. That's not the victory it sounds like, Thomas. The internet forgets fast. Outrage trends, then dies. Real change takes longer, and it's never pretty. Thomas hesitated, then said quietly, I served 20 years in the Marines before this job. I've seen men break down after less. The way you stood there tonight, that wasn't just control. That was a strength. She turned to face him fully. Strength, she repeated softly. People think it's something you build. It's not. It's something you survive. The silence between them stretched, not uncomfortable, but weighted with understanding. Thomas cleared his throat. I've started pulling the reports you requested. You were right. There are multiple discrimination complaints at this branch. Some buried, some dismissed. All signed off by Henderson and Hughes. Evelyn's jaw tightened. How many? 13 in the last year. She exhaled slowly, the number hitting her like a silent blow. 13 people, she said. 13 stories that never made it past a file cabinet. Most were low-income guests, Thomas added. A few employees, too. One even mentioned being threatened if they spoke up. Evelyn's eyes darkened. Find that one. I want their name, Thomas nodded. I'll handle it personally. Good. She turned back toward the window, the glow of the city casting her silhouette in gold and shadow. Because what happened tonight wasn't random. It was a symptom. And symptoms always point to something deeper. Something rotten. Thomas hesitated. You think it goes higher? Evelyn smiled faintly. I don't think, Thomas. I know. She picked up her phone again, typing quickly. Her fingers moved with precision, her mind already 3 steps ahead. You're not just planning to fire people, Thomas said slowly. You're planning something bigger. Evelyn's gaze didn't waver. The brand's integrity is collapsing from within. Henderson and Hughes are just the surface. But there are names above them. People who think I'm too busy, too polished, too distracted to notice. Her tone hardened. They've mistaken grace for weakness. That mistake ends tonight. Thomas studied her for a moment. And the media? They're waiting for your official statement. Let them wait, Evelyn said. The next thing they hear will be the truth, not the PR version. He nodded respectfully. Understood. I'll tighten security. After tonight's exposure, we can't be too careful. Evelyn smiled thinly. Good thinking, Mr. Ray. Some of the enemies we face won't be outside the hotel. As he turned to leave, the elevator chimed faintly in the distance. Evelyn froze. She hadn't called for anyone. Thomas instinctively reached for his radio. "Security, confirm who's on the penthouse floor," he said, static. No response. "Systems glitching again," he muttered. The elevator doors slid open down the hall. Footsteps echoed, slow, deliberate. Evelyn's voice lowered. "I thought you said this floor was locked down." "It was," Thomas replied, hand near his holster. "No one should be up here." The lights flickered once, then steadied. From the hallway, a shadow moved. A man in a dark suit appeared, carrying a folder. His face was half hidden, but Evelyn saw his posture immediately, too confident to be a stranger. Thomas stepped forward. "Sir, this is a restricted area." The man ignored him and walked directly toward Evelyn, stopping a few feet away. When he finally spoke, his tone was calm, almost courteous, but something in it felt wrong. "Good evening, Miss Carter," he said. "My name's Richard Hale. I represent the Board of Holdings. I believe we have something to discuss." Evelyn's pulse spiked, though her expression stayed unreadable. The board rarely appeared unannounced, and never after midnight. She straightened, facing him squarely. "Does the board usually conduct business in the middle of the night, Mr. Hale?" Richard's faint smile didn't reach his eyes. "Only when the situation demands urgency." "What happened downstairs?" "It's drawn attention we didn't need." Thomas's instincts kicked in. "If you're here to intimidate Miss Carter—" "Relax, Mr. A," Richard interrupted smoothly. "I'm not here to threaten anyone. I'm here to contain the damage before it spreads beyond this building." Evelyn crossed her arms. "Contain the damage?" she repeated. "Or contain me?" His silence answered for him. Outside, lightning flashed across the skyline, illuminating the glass tower in silver light. Evelyn stood motionless, a storm brewing both inside and out. "Mr. Hale," she said quietly, "you came to my hotel tonight to clean up a mess I didn't create. But if you think I'll stay silent while corruption hides behind our name," her voice dropped, steady and sharp as glass, "then you have no idea who you're dealing with." The thunder rolled. Thomas took one small step closer, and for the first time that night, Richard Hale's smile began to fade. The thunder rolled again, deeper this time, shaking the glass walls of the penthouse. Rain smeared the city lights into trembling streaks of gold and silver. Evelyn Carter stood with her back to the skyline, her eyes locked on Richard Hale, the man who had just walked into her sanctuary like a ghost from the boardroom. Behind her, Thomas Ray remained near the door, his posture alert, muscles tense, hand resting subtly near his holster. The tension in the room felt almost electric, humming with something dangerous and unspoken. Evelyn broke the silence first. "You said you represent the board. I assume you mean the same board that's been ignoring my audit reports for months?" Richard's lips curved into a faint, humorless smile. "You've always been perceptive. Yes, that board. But tonight I'm not here to discuss your paperwork. I'm here to talk about damage control." "Damage control," Evelyn repeated softly, as if testing the weight of the words. "You mean covering up what happened downstairs?" "I mean preventing a full-blown scandal," Richard replied smoothly. The live stream has gone viral. Over 4 million views in less than 2 hours. Hashtags, outrage, talk shows. You've become the face of the storm, Evelyn. And that's inconvenient. Her eyes narrowed. Inconvenient for whom? "For all of us," he said, voice sharp. "You may own majority shares, but you're not the only one with something to lose. The investors are nervous. The stock might dip. The press is circling like vultures. The board wants reassurance, a statement, a narrative, something controlled." Evelyn moved slowly toward him, her heels echoing against the marble. "Controlled," she said. "You mean fabricated?" Richard met her gaze evenly. "Managed," he corrected. "If you issue a soft statement, an apology for the miscommunication, a promise of internal review, we can calm the noise. In return, the board will ensure this incident doesn't tarnish your record." Thomas exhaled sharply. "You're asking her to lie." Richard glanced at him dismissively. "I'm asking her to protect her company," but Evelyn was already shaking her head. "No," she said, her tone low but final. "You're asking me to protect yours." For a moment, neither spoke. The sound of rain filled the silence like static between two radio frequencies, tension crackling, invisible, unstoppable. Richard's composure cracked slightly. You're letting your emotions get in the way of reason. Do you have any idea how this looks from the outside? A CEO being racially profiled in her own hotel makes everyone look incompetent. Evelyn's expression didn't change. Then maybe they are. The room went still. Thomas glanced at her, admiration flickering behind his caution, while Richard's jaw tightened. You're walking a dangerous line, Evelyn. So are you, she replied. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You think you can challenge the system from inside. You think your shareholders will stand by while you drag them into your crusade. The board doesn't tolerate martyrs. Evelyn leaned in, her eyes glinting with cold defiance. Then they've underestimated the wrong woman. Richard studied her in silence, his expression unreadable. Then he sighed, adjusting his tie. I warned them you'd be difficult. Evelyn tilted her head slightly. And what did they say? They said if persuasion didn't work, Richard said quietly. Pressure might. Thomas took a step forward. You're not threatening her. Richard raised a hand. No threats. Just reality. He placed the folder he'd been carrying on the table and slid it toward Evelyn. Inside are the names of every person the board intends to replace. Executives loyal to you, employees you've promoted, even your communications chief. They'll be gone by next week. Their replacements are already approved. Evelyn's eyes flicked to the folder, but she didn't touch it. You've planned a coup, she said. Richard gave a faint shrug. We prefer the term restructuring. You still keep your title. Publicly, nothing changes. But internally, the board will control operations. You'll be a figurehead, graceful, silent, and compliant. The storm outside intensified, wind rattling the glass as if echoing her heartbeat. Evelyn felt fury rise within her. Not loud, not reckless, but cold, precise, and unrelenting. She picked up the folder, flipped it open, and scanned the first page. Every name listed there was a person who'd stood beside her. People she'd mentored, protected, fought for. Each one now marked for elimination. Tell me, she said quietly, how long have you been planning this? Richard didn't hesitate. Since before the acquisition in January. The investors have been growing uneasy about your independent streak. My integrity, you mean? He smiled thinly. Call it what you like, but independence has limits, especially when it threatens profits. Evelyn closed the folder gently, her composure returning like armor. You made one mistake, Richard, he frowned. What mistake? You assumed I didn't see this coming, Thomas blinked. You knew? Evelyn nodded once, her eyes never leaving Richard. I knew something was brewing. The hesitation in meetings, the silence from the board, the sudden leak of performance data last quarter, all signs of an internal shift. So I did what I always do. Richard's confidence wavered. And what's that? I prepared. From her desk, Evelyn retrieved a slim silver tablet and tapped the screen. The monitor on the wall flickered to life, revealing files, timestamps, and emails. Correspondence between board members and Richard Hale himself. Every message carried one goal, to undermine Evelyn Carter and reclaim control of the company from her. Thomas stared at the screen, astonished. You had all this. Evelyn's voice was steady. For months. I just needed them to show their hand. Richard's composure cracked entirely. You can't prove those are real. You think this will save you? Evelyn smiled faintly. No, it won't save me. It'll save the company from people like you. She turned to Thomas. Secure these files. Make multiple copies, off-site and encrypted. Yes, ma'am. Richard stepped forward, panic edging into his tone. Evelyn, think about what you're doing. If you release this, I won't release it, she interrupted calmly. Not yet, he froze. I'm not here to destroy, she said. I'm here to rebuild, but on truth, not fear. She walked closer until she stood just a breath away from him. Go back to the board, Richard. Tell them I'm giving them one chance. One, to clean house voluntarily. If they don't, then every message, every signature, every name goes public. He swallowed hard. You'd take down your own company? She smiled. I'd rather burn it to ash than let it rot from within. Lightning flashed behind her, illuminating her silhouette, powerful, composed, and untouchable. Richard turned away slowly, his mask of confidence shattered. You'll regret this, he muttered. Only if I fail, Evelyn replied. As the elevator doors closed behind him, the room fell silent again. Thomas looked at her with a mix of awe and concern. "What now?" he asked softly. Evelyn turned back toward the window, her reflection framed by the city's fractured light. "Now," she said, "the war begins. Not the one outside these walls, but the one inside them." Outside, the rain began to fade, but the storm within Crystal Heights had only just begun to rage. The morning after the storm, Crystal Heights looked deceptively calm. The marble floors gleamed, the chandeliers sparkled, and the lobby hummed with its usual rhythm of luxury. But beneath the polished surface, tension pulsed like an unseen current. The viral footage had spread across every platform. News anchors debated it. Hashtags blazed. Talk shows replayed Evelyn Carter's calm defiance in slow motion, calling her the CEO who fought back. By sunrise, the New York Times, CNN, and Forbes had all requested interviews. The incident had turned from corporate scandal to cultural lightning rod. Evelyn sat in her penthouse office, overlooking the city. She hadn't slept. Her desk was covered with reports, legal drafts, and statements waiting for her signature. She'd spent the entire night piecing together the truth, not just about what happened in the lobby, but about what was happening within the company. Thomas Ray entered quietly, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "You should take a break," he said gently. Evelyn didn't look up. "I'll rest when this building breathes integrity again." He set the cup down in front of her. "The media's circling. They're calling what happened a revolution in corporate ethics." Evelyn gave a tired smile. "Revolution is a romantic word for something painful, Thomas. Revolutions don't end, they evolve. And they take casualties." Thomas hesitated, studying her. "You mean people like Paul and Clara?" Her expression softened, though her tone remained firm. "They were the spark, not the fire. I'm not angry at them anymore. I'm angry at the culture that made them believe their behavior was acceptable. That's what I'm going to destroy." Thomas nodded, impressed by her clarity. "Then we'll rebuild from the ground up." But before he could say more, Evelyn's phone buzzed sharply. Her assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "Ms. Carter, you need to see this. The board just issued a press statement. Without your authorization," Evelyn froze. "Patch it through." A moment later, the screen on her desk flickered to life, showing a polished news anchor reading from a prepared statement. "Crystal Heights Holdings deeply regrets last night's misunderstanding. Our CEO, Ms. Evelyn Carter, has expressed her commitment to internal review and staff training to ensure future compliance with company policies. The board maintains full confidence in her leadership." Thomas frowned. They twisted it. "They made it sound like you apologized." Evelyn's lips parted slightly, not in shock, but in quiet fury. "They moved faster than I expected," she said. "They're trying to own the narrative before I do." Thomas leaned forward. "We can counter it. Release your own video statement." Evelyn shook her head. "No, not yet. Let them think they've won the morning. By tonight, the world will hear the truth from me, not filtered through a teleprompter." She turned her chair slightly, gazing out at the sprawling city below. "Do you know what the problem with power is, Thomas?" He waited. "It's addictive. It makes people forget that leadership isn't about control. It's about responsibility. The board thinks they can silence me because I value the brand more than justice. But they've mistaken restraint for surrender." Her phone buzzed again, this time a text. One line. "They've launched an internal audit. You're under review." Anonymous. Evelyn's eyes darkened. "They're escalating." Thomas frowned. "They can't audit you. You're the majority owner." "They can if they fabricate grounds," she said grimly. "They'll accuse me of mismanagement, misuse of funds, anything that buys them time." Thomas clenched his jaw. "Then it's war." Evelyn rose from her chair slowly, her expression unreadable. "It's already war." She walked to a small cabinet near the window and unlocked a drawer. Inside were neatly stacked flash drives, each one labeled with a date. She handed one to Thomas. "This contains the evidence of their corruption, transactions, shell accounts, falsified reports. I've been compiling it quietly for months." Thomas took it carefully. "You really did see it coming." "I've spent my life being underestimated," she said softly. It's the most powerful advantage a woman can have. As she spoke, the office phone rang again. Her assistant's voice trembled. Ms. Carter, Paul Henderson's lawyer, is on the line. He's threatening to sue the company for wrongful termination, claims the incident was entrapment. Evelyn's eyes closed briefly, exhaustion brushing against her patience. Of course he is, she murmured. When accountability arrives, cowards call it a trap. Should I transfer him? No, Evelyn said. Let him scream into the void. I have bigger enemies now. She turned to Thomas. Contact the Department of Corporate Ethics. I'm going public with everything tonight. But it has to be verified, airtight, and undeniable. He hesitated. Evelyn, if you do that, you might lose the company. She looked at him, calm, resolute, fearless. Then I'll build another, but I won't lose myself. The air between them grew still. Outside, the storm clouds began to part, sunlight piercing through the skyline. The city glittered again, cleaner, clearer, but fragile, like something reborn. A soft knock came at the door. It opened slightly, revealing Lena Brooks, the vlogger whose live stream had started everything. Her eyes were wide, almost hesitant. Ms. Carter, I had to see you. Evelyn smiled gently. Come in, Lena. Lena stepped forward, clutching her phone nervously. You don't know me, but after last night, the video, the comments, I've been getting messages from people who went through the same thing. They want to share their stories. They want to stand with you. Evelyn's eyes softened. Then tell them I'll stand with them too. Lena's voice cracked slightly. They're calling you the Iron Grace. Evelyn gave a small, genuine laugh. Grace without strength is fragile. Strength without grace is tyranny. The balance is where change begins. Lena nodded, tears forming in her eyes. You've given people hope. Hope is good, Evelyn said. But justice, that's better. As Lena left, Thomas looked at her with quiet admiration. You've already changed how people see leadership. Evelyn smiled faintly. Change isn't enough. I want accountability. And by tonight, the world will see exactly what Crystal Heights has been hiding. She turned back to the window, her reflection superimposed against the skyline, half shadow, half light. The world below was already shifting, trembling beneath the weight of truth she was about to unleash. Somewhere deep inside her, beneath the fatigue and fury, she felt something rare. Peace. Not because the battle was over, but because she finally knew who she was fighting for. For every voice silenced, for every dignity stolen, for every truth buried under corporate lies, the storm had cleared, but the fire, her fire, had just begun to rise. The night sky over Chicago shimmered with restless light. Helicopters circled above Crystal Heights, and reporters filled the streets below like waves crashing against marble. The world waited, not for scandal, but for truth. Inside the penthouse, Evelyn Carter stood near the window, the city reflected in her eyes. She had faced humiliation, betrayal, and silence, and tonight, it would all end. Thomas Ray, her closest ally, adjusted the small recording setup on her desk. There were no producers, no PR agents, just Evelyn, a camera, and the courage to finally speak. "You're sure you want to go live?" Thomas asked quietly. Evelyn nodded, her expression calm but resolute. "I'm done hiding behind polished statements. The truth doesn't need makeup." He gave a small nod. "Then let's begin." At precisely 9 p.m., Evelyn clicked, "Go live." Within seconds, her face appeared on thousands of screens across the country. Comments poured in, hearts and shocked emojis flooding the feed. But Evelyn didn't read them. Her gaze stayed fixed, unflinching, unwavering. "Good evening," she began softly. "My name is Evelyn Carter. For years I've been the CEO of Crystal Heights Hotels, and for years I believed leadership was about loyalty, about protecting what you've built. I was wrong. Leadership is about protecting what's right." Her voice didn't tremble. It carried the calm precision of someone who had already lost everything, except her integrity. What happened in this hotel wasn't an accident. It was a symptom of arrogance, of bias, of a system built to protect power instead of people. Tonight, I'm ending that system. Thomas pressed a key on the laptop beside her. Instantly, a flood of files began uploading to a public server. Board memos, falsified financials, discrimination complaints buried by executives. For years, Evelyn continued, employees who spoke the truth were silenced. Guests were profiled. Voices were erased. And every time I tried to confront it, I was told to keep quiet for the good of the brand. Well, silence isn't good anymore. It's poison. As the files were uploaded, journalists began breaking the news in real time. Screens across America lit up with documents, undeniable proof of corruption. Thomas turned to her, his eyes wide. It's all out there. Every lie, every name. Evelyn nodded. Then it's finally clean. But the peace was short-lived. The door burst open. 2 board members, both pale with panic, stormed into the penthouse with private security behind them. What have you done? One demanded. You've destroyed this company. Evelyn turned slowly, her expression calm. No, she said softly. I've freed it. You'll lose everything, the other shouted. She met their eyes. I already did, the night your staff decided that my skin tone made me a criminal in my own hotel. The men exchanged frantic looks, then stormed out, their voices echoing down the corridor. Evelyn turned back to Thomas. They still think this is about business, she murmured. It's not. It's about humanity. She ended the live stream with a single sentence. No empire built on silence deserves to stand. Then she closed her laptop, exhaling deeply as if releasing years of invisible weight. 3 weeks later, the world had changed, and so had Evelyn Carter. Crystal Heights Holdings was under federal investigation. Executives resigned, the board dissolved, and investors fled. But amid the ashes, something unexpected bloomed. Public support. Former employees, civil rights leaders, and even competing CEOs praised her courage. Instead of retreating, Evelyn launched something new, the Phoenix Initiative. A company built not on luxury, but on dignity. Boutique hotels run through fair employment, community investment, and inclusivity. The slogan was simple: from ashes, we rise. On the day of the first Phoenix opening, the crowd gathered under soft golden lights. Cameras clicked, but Evelyn didn't pose. She simply spoke. This isn't about revenge, she said. It's about rebirth, about proving that power without conscience is hollow, and that truth, no matter how painful, always rebuilds stronger. The crowd applauded. Some cried. But Evelyn just smiled, not proudly, but peacefully. Later that night, as she stood on the rooftop with Thomas, the Chicago skyline stretched before them, the same city that once humiliated her now glittering in quiet respect. Strange, Thomas said softly. The view hasn't changed, but it feels different. Evelyn smiled faintly. Because it's not the view that changed, Thomas. It's the woman standing in front of it. They stood there, letting the wind sweep over them. The chaos had faded, replaced by something purer. Freedom. Thomas glanced at her. You could have walked away. Started over quietly. Why fight this hard? Evelyn turned toward him, her eyes reflecting the lights below. Because silence is how injustice survives, and I promised myself, never again. A gentle rain began to fall, faint but steady. It washed over the rooftop, glistening on her skin like new beginnings. Thomas handed her an umbrella. She shook her head and let the rain fall freely. For years, she whispered, I built walls around my name, my title, my reputation. But maybe those walls had to burn before I could see what really mattered. Thomas smiled. And what's that? Truth, she said simply. Even when it costs everything. They stood quietly as thunder rumbled somewhere far away. Below them, the golden letters on the building's sign gleamed through the rain. Phoenix rises. Evelyn closed her eyes, the storm's rhythm echoing like a heartbeat. She had lost an empire, but gained something greater, a voice that could no longer be silenced. Final lines. In the ashes of her downfall, Evelyn Carter found her freedom. Her story was no longer about power, it was about purpose. And as lightning lit the sky over Chicago, one truth burned brighter than ever. Sometimes you have to lose everything to become unstoppable.